Mic check, 1 2. Mic check, 1 2.
Hello, GovHack Week. We are back. So, we just got off talking with the team from Entry and we're jumping right into the team from Istio. So, when we started putting this together a couple of weeks ago, I reached out to some open source projects, starting with Istio and Keycloak and a few. And Istio, they were like by far the most receptive. So I am super excited to have a couple of the working group leadership from Istio. So I'm going to switch over to so you can see them as well. And gentlemen, the floor is yours. Welcome. Please, introduce yourself to everyone, to Platform One and the other members of the Twitch community who are joined us for GovHack Week.
So, I'm Brian Avery. I work at Red Hat. I'm a lead of the Product Security Working Group, and I'm a lead of the Test and Release Working Group.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Jason, and welcome to all future Istio contributors. I'm the co-founder and chief architect at Aspen Mesh. I've been a long-time contributor to Istio. I'm currently a member of the Istio Technical Oversight Committee and recently elected to steering committee. So we're really excited to have everyone, whoever is going to watch it live or come on later. And I think Brian is going to start you down the right path by telling you how you can contribute easily to Istio.
Yep.
Brian, you want to take it away?
Yep. Thank you, Jason and Raj. Okay, so quick table of contents. We're going to talk about deploying Istio, high-level architecture, developing locally, Istio's pull request process, potential focus areas, and then links. The goal of this is to be somewhat interactive, so there's plenty of room for questions and that sort of thing. Okay, so deploying Istio. So on Istio's website, we suggest using either Minikube or Kind. There is a website, istio.io/latest docs setup getting started. That includes directions on how to get Istio. So yeah, I can do a demo now or I can wait. What do you think, Niraj?
Let's just do it. I mean, this is quite simple, and most of the stuff, yeah.
Okay. So
nobody will believe you if you say it's simpler.
That's true. Okay. Okay, so right now I'm downloading Istio. Can you see my screen or see my terminal?
Yes.
Yeah, we can.
Okay. Okay. So I'm just done. This script right here just downloads the latest version of Istio. If you want to use another version, you can use the Istio version flag here, but for now, we'll just use the latest. Okay, so next step is move to the package directory. So we have the Istio 173 directory. Export path equals pwd/bin, which just adds the Istio cuddle command to the path. And now you can do
Before you jump to that step, Brian, since Brian is an expert and probably does this 10 times a day, we just have to make sure that you actually have access to a running Kubernetes cluster. And that running Kubernetes cluster needs to be in the supported versions that Istio has for that particular release. So do you want to show that where we store that information?
Yeah, it's been a little while since I've looked at that.
You can click on platform support on the left.
Okay. Platform setup?
Sorry, platform setup. If you scroll down, there you see it.
Thanks.
So yeah, so you want to verify if your versions actually match, because that's one of the problems that I have when I start working with Istio, latest Istio and older Kubernetes version.
And I've
tripped over that too, so I completely get that. I you know, one of the experiments I'm thinking about is trying it out with K3D. Have either of you tried that out yet?
Use what?
Long time ago.
How did it turn out? Because I have that on my box right now. So.
So long back, Istio had quite resource intensive requirements, and I wasn't able to make it work. But that doesn't mean you will not be able to make it work now. So I'll be interested in what you find out.
Yeah, I'll certainly let you know.
Okay. So going back here, I've got a kind cluster running, which is an appropriate version. I've downloaded Istio. Istio has a command line utility called Istio Cuddle. Well, that's fun. Have you seen that before, Niraj?
Well, yeah. So do you have access to the cluster? So if you do kubectl get pods, what do you get?
Oh, okay.
There you go. We are doing live debugging and teaching. That's fun. Yeah, so basically you need to export the kube config so that you have actual access to your cluster, and that's what Brian is right now doing.
There it is. Yay, live demos.
And he's sharing his secrets with us.
So I did a live demo a while ago, and I won't name the guilty, but I was doing a Rancher demo, and I said, hey, do you have a cluster that I could just, that if we trash, it's no big deal, that I can connect Rancher to? And he shares it, and I import it into Rancher, and I show off the kube config for it. And he freaked out because we showed a secret on a live stream, and he just killed the cluster right there in the middle of the demo. So all of a sudden the cluster's just gone, and he's like, I'm sorry, I panicked a little bit. I deleted the cluster. I'm like, no biggie, we'll just spin up another one.
That's a good thing about disposable clusters, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yep. I see that error popped up. Istio core encountered an error. Server could not find the requested resource. Continuing with the installation.
Yeah, let's see what will happen.
Yep.
Yay for eventual consistency.
Yep.
So how is the Platform One initiative going so far, Jason? Are you seeing lots of folks working in open source excited?
Absolutely. So we like I said, we had this idea for the hackathon pretty recently, and it just kind of threw out there. And there's a lot of excitement within the organization and with our vendors and customers around getting involved in open source. So I'm just going to keep pushing people to towards these different projects that we're using to make them all better. So we'll see how many from the original list of about 100 that signed up to the 20 that registered to the those that are watching the videos who get involved. I fully expect to see that kind of attrition, but we're just going to keep pushing and keep giving shout outs to these different projects. And if we get one contributor a week, great. We get one a month, great. If we don't get it all, well, then we'll figure out what we're doing wrong and then get some more.
That's exciting. And what other projects in this space? Sorry, Brian.
Go on, Niraj.
I know you all are definitely interested in Istio, and I know you are using it in your platform too. What are some of the other projects that you're looking at?
So because we are, and anybody who's halfway interested in this could look at p1.dsop.io about the different services we provide. So we've built out as a team a set of hardened DoD approved containers that are secure and good base containers, and then from there we built another project out called Big Bang, and Big Bang is all the infrastructure as code and configuration as code that is used to stand up essentially the 85% solution for GitOps. So we're using tools like Argo CD, and we're
Mm-hmm.
we're using all your Node.js for your developers and your .NET Core for developers. So the developers out of the box get pipelines so that they only have to worry about code. Now, that's not guaranteed because there's still things we haven't touched in that 85%. But the end goal is that we can automate all the things, and development teams that get on the platform one can just worry about their code. And we're getting there one step at a time. So I'm involved with a team that works with oncoming projects to figure out where the gaps are. So we build out automation pipelines, things of that nature. But Istio is a major part of that, in so much as doing MTLS and things of that nature and handling all of our ingress. So we're a huge fan of the project, which when you all responded, I was really excited to have you on because this is one of the cooler projects that is part of this. Plus Kubernetes, like I said, plus Argo, plus GitLab, plus it's we have the NASCAR slide of all the logos of things, that include all those as well.
Yeah, no, this is really exciting. Not just that you all are using open source project, you want to contribute, and then how you are internally offering it to your own customers who are developers. So thank you for sharing that. How's it going, Brian?
Would you, if we need to do any demos, would you be able to do them? My kind doesn't seem to be working at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Give me 2 minutes. I will set up an environment, and you can continue to run through your slides. How does that sound?
That sounds good. Okay, so going back to the slides here. Apologies for the demo issues. Okay, so we recommend Minikube or Kind for local development. Both are lightweight versions of Kubernetes. Okay, so high-level architecture of Istio. Yay, okay. So Istio is made up of a couple of different components. It used to be made up of far more, but in 1.6, I believe it was simplified to really be 2 components. You have the Istio proxy component, which is a wrapper around Envoy plus some Istio customizations. And then you have the Istio D component. Inside of Istio D is Pilot, Citadel, and Galley. So Pilot really manages configuring the Envoy proxy. Citadel manages the secrets, and then Galley verifies configuration. Some more details going down this page. Envoy is really the workhorse, and then it's used in charge of configuration and that sort of thing. So the code for Istio is broken up likewise. So you've got each of these individual repositories here. I'll open the root of this, but I won't delve into each of these individually. So you have a directory for Pilot, a directory for Galley, a directory for security, which is actually what Citadel was called initially, but that's where the Citadel code is. And all of those links are right here. All of the components except for Envoy are written in Go. Envoy is written in C++. There's new functionality as of, I believe it was 1.6 in Istio for WASM extensions. Those can be written in Rust, C++, or assembly script. C++ is currently the most mature. Okay, so getting started in Istio. First, you need to sign the CLA. You can do that really at any point, but the CLA it's a license agreement that you have to sign in order to make a contribution to Istio. So probably better to confirm that you're willing to accept that before you try to make changes and figure out that you're not willing to.
Yeah. just one thing here. It's really important to make sure you have this ironed out. Coming from from my past experiences, sometimes organizations have stricter policies around what projects you can contribute to and which people in the organization, your organization, can contribute to them. Good thing about the Istio automation is if you don't have your CLA signed, it won't let you merge your pull request. So you do get that notification that, hey, you need to make sure you sign the CLA. And that mostly means consult your colleagues or your manager and make sure you have your right approvals before you contribute.
Yep. So the next part is forking the repository. We have, or GitHub's documentation for forking repositories is linked here. I'm assuming a lot of people know how to fork repositories already, but it's there. And then clone your forked repository using git clone so that you have the code locally. Create a branch for your changes based off of the master branch. In Istio, we tend to follow a system where each release has its own branch, release-1.6, release 1.7. Pretty soon there will be a release-1.8. But all new features and code changes go into master and then get cherry picked to each of those individual release branches. After you make your changes, run make test to run local tests. For docs changes, we also require make lint, and occasionally you see a message about make gen, which creates automatically generated configuration. Like you might have changes to the installation profile, which requires make gen in order to update those files to be able to run. If there are any user-facing changes, add a release note. So there's a file that gets added in each pull request that is contains a release note. I can pull that up real quick and show it. So we have a system here. These are the docs for it right here. But we have a system here which will take a YAML file contained in the notes directory, and it will automatically generate release notes when it comes time to do a release. So it'll say, hey, here's the previous release, here's the current release, let's find all the changes in between, and let's generate a release note. So you'd say, here's any documentation that needs to be linked in this release note. Here's what the change is. If it affects upgrades, then you can add a comment here. And if it affects security, then you can add a comment there as well. And then, yeah, there's more documentation here, but that's the high level of it. Once the changes are ready, open a pull request. Depending on the area of the code change, the appropriate work group will be selected as a reviewer from the code owners file. So GitHub lets you create these files called code owners, and the level, it goes in a hierarchy. So the closest level that has that code owners file is who will be assigned as a reviewer for that pull request, or what team. Once it is complete, the Istio infrastructure will run a set of tests appropriate for your pull request. Niraj pointed out the CLA. That's an example. We've got tests that run something to make sure make gen is run. Basically, make sure that everything passes into your code, looks good before it's merged. Once this is, or if you're not a member of the Istio community yet, then an Istio member will have to give an OK to test, which is just a Git label after which all of your tests will run. And GitHub will give you a message saying, hey, this hasn't been done yet. Add that label real quick.
Brian, very quickly, if you don't mind me saying something. Yeah. So this is something that some new developers or new contributors often get hung up on. So they'll be waiting for the test to run, and they'll come back and they'll feel like nobody's paying attention. It's nothing like that. We from the community who are maintainers and leads in various groups, we get on an average 100 plus emails from GitHub a day. So it sometimes gets lost in the noise.
Yep.
If you know the specific person, just reach out on Slack and say, hey, I have a PR, can you take a look and hit OK to test? And if you don't know the specific person you want to reach to, you can always reach out to Brian and me, and we'll direct you to the right people.
Yep. So is that an additional check to the CLA check?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Our CI is pretty advanced. It keeps checking all the right knobs so that both for protection and policy enforcement. So somebody who's flying by from the internet cannot just add code, which will basically blow up our entire GitHub, for example.
Yeah, that would be bad.
Uh-huh.
And then, yeah, assuming all the tests pass, you've got the OK to test label, you've signed your CLA, somebody has reviewed it and given an approval. then GitHub will it'll automatically merge the pull request. Okay. Istio welcomes contributions in really anything that would help the project. Documentation, writing features and tests, answering questions on discuss.istio.io and Slack. Discuss is Istio's forum to come and ask questions. Release testing. So we've got the 1.8 release coming up soon. We've got a whole spreadsheet of tests that need to be done before the release goes out. So help with that would be greatly appreciated. Finding and filing bugs, resolving issues. There's a whole number of different things. Looking for some ideas. So we have a help wanted label on Istio, or on the issues, which will show you issues that the workgroup leads have thought would be useful for people who are new to the project to come and look at. There's a link to it right there. Our 1.8 release testing, as I said, will be the week of October 21st and 28th, so it's coming up. Watch for an announcement on Discuss, and yeah, any help testing that would be awesome.
One minor note here, Brian. So if you are starting to work on any issue which is help wanted, first thing you should do is add a comment and make sure that the story or the issue writer still is seeing that issue or they want it fixed. Because often, it's open source project, people create issues and the labels might not be correctly attributed or they go stale. Second, reach out to any of the working group leads. And for most of the issues, if they have been triaged, you will see which working group is assigned to it. So you can just do @ and the working group alias, and you will get attention. You can ask them, is this issue still valid? And then secondly, you can also ask them, what's the best way to solve it? So some of those steps, sorry, Brian, just one more thing. I would always recommend doing that for any open source project, not just Istio. Make sure that issue is valid and make sure you know the right ways to fix it.
Yeah, I agree.
Before you write code. Just
expanding on this real quick, I clicked on the help wanted link that I had, and this is an example of one of the issues. You can see on the side it has a label environments, area/environments on it. So if you go to the environment Slack channel or ask an environment workgroup lead, then somebody will help you out with that. We're all friendly. We don't bite.
Now, about how long between Kubernetes release, does Istio support that new version?
I believe it's 2 releases right now.
Okay.
Okay, so another idea is documentation tests. So one project that we've been working on in Istio for the last couple of releases is we have on our website, we have a whole bunch of documentation, and we have a framework that will actually go through and execute those steps and make sure the output looks reasonable and try to automate testing so that somebody doesn't have to come in and manually test that to make sure it works still. You can tell that tests still need to be automated by looking at the documentation page. And if it has a gray X next to page test, then that means that doesn't yet have a test. Info on writing those can be found at the link here, which provides documentation on how to write an automated test for our docs. It's designed to be fairly high level, so you don't necessarily have to know Go or anything else. It produces a bash script and tries to make it easy for somebody who's familiar with the documentation to write a test versus somebody who's an advanced programmer.
Yeah, and this is a really cool automation step that we have in the community. I would be both excited and grateful if folks who are contributing for the first time take this up. And specifically for doc testing, the test and release working group and the documentation working group, both of these working groups can help you get started if you need some help or if you're stuck. So reach out to them.
Yep. Is this a separate sub-project of Istio that does this for the docs, or is this something built into your CI/CD pipeline?
So, I mean, it's built into the docs. It goes.
Yeah, it's part of the process.
Yeah, as somebody who is very, very documentation interested, because docs are product in my world. Anything that can coincide the docs with the project in such a way that we know that the docs are correct, and that we know that the scripts that we show off in the docs are still correct is a huge win in my book.
Yep. So delving into this a little bit, if you go to the, not an individual pull request. If you go to the Istio.io repo, our documentation is in content, EN, or EN for the English language. We also have support for Chinese and Brazilian Portuguese as well, which translators are also appreciated. So under docs, you have all of these individual documentation examples. So if I go to tasks, and I go to, say, observability, distributed tracing, Jaeger. Okay, so index.md, that's your documentation. Snips.sh is a file that's automatically generated that contains the commands that were executed in the documentation. And then you have your test.sh, which is actually a documentation test that gets executed as part of a pull request to the documentation repository.
That's very cool.
It is a really cool framework. And then, yeah, congrats on your first contribution and welcome to the Istio community. And I provided a set of links here too. We have a wiki which provides some documentation for getting going. So there's a page for preparing for development on a Mac, preparing for development on Linux, troubleshooting your development environment, a high-level repository map, although I think this could use some updates looking through it, and yeah, a lot of other useful information. So that's go on, Rush.
I was going to say, as you're browsing through these docs, or the wiki pages, like Brian said, if they're outdated, reach out to us and we'll fix it. Or if you become a Istio community member, you can fix it yourself.
Yep. I was mentioning this morning when we did our kind of intro to contributing open sources. As you're going through the getting started docs, when it's broken, because these things happen, go ahead and fix it. Like that's a big part of getting started with a project, is learning how other people ingest the project for the first time. And if it doesn't make sense to you, it's not going to make sense to the person behind you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'd second that. A lot of us, we've been working on Istio for a long time, months, years. We see it day in, day out, and some stuff we're just used to that might not be obvious to other people.
Yeah. I'm the co-founder of Aspen Mesh, so we have onboarded so many people. One of the things I do for onboarding is you have to pass the baton. So the newest hire, make sure you are onboarding the next person and your documents that you have are up to date. Yep. So it's pretty similar to that. New contributors make it better for the next ones.
Yeah. This talk is an effort by Niraj and myself to try to help break down that barrier and make it easier for people to get involved. Okay, so we've also got a contributing guide here. Some high-level information, code of conduct, how to access design docs, contributing a feature, that sort of thing. Development conventions, documentation conventions. We have a Slack, which we've talked about throughout this, but that link right there will actually, I think I need to update that link, but I'll update that link and that will show you how to join the Slack community. And then we have a team drive, which that's the link to joining it. But we have a team drive, which will actually include all the design docs and everything for Istio. And yeah, that's what I had.
Do you want me to go to the live demo now?
Yeah, that would be
and
awesome.
See if it works? All right. So let me start sharing.
I love to. So I do a lot of live coding as part of streaming, and make a lot of mistakes. And I think my regular line is, "I'm just not a smart man." And it just proves out to be true over and over and over again, because most of the mistakes I've made a million times. It's just I've made them new again today.
Yeah. So two things, Brian. You need to stop sharing so I can share. And I totally echo what Jason just said. In fact, I stopped doing live demos altogether. Even for all the conference presentations I do, I actually take snippets of configuration and outputs if I want, because primarily, I don't think I'm smart enough in front of a big crowd to do things correctly. And secondly, it never freaking works.
Oh yeah, okay, I've done a lot of code camps and meetups where I generally will live code, and I always start, okay, let's say a prayer to the demo gods, because if we if we upset them, it's not going to go well today.
I agree. All right. So how is it looking on your side? Is this big enough? Should I make it bigger? Is the terminal good? Font on it?
I'm only half blind, so yeah, make it a little bit larger for those that are full on blind.
All right. Is that better?
Yep.
Oh, I have a big monitor, so sometimes when I share my screen, things get a little wonky. All right. So basically, I'm going to do the same thing that Brian was trying, which is follow the Istio documentation here to easily install Istio in your cluster. And if we have time, I will try to install some sample application and get traffic going, all assuming that the demo gods are with me. So first thing, I'll ensure I have the right version of Kubernetes. So I just did a kubectl version, and it gives you a lot of information about what the client version is and the server version is. As you can see, I have server version 1.18. If I go to the platform support, this is in the supported window. So that's good. So the next step here is follow this guide. Like it says download and install Istio, deploy the sample application, open the application. So this page is for someone who just want to play with Istio quickly. It's not for getting a production ready version of Istio. That configuration and that documentation lives somewhere. But today we're just going to do a demo. So I'm going to follow this. So I've copied this. Once this is running, it is going to install the latest version of Istio automatically to my local machine. So there you go. I have the Istio 173, as you can see, and I also have a latest version of Istio. That's why you saw that ugly looking this thing. So all our builds nightly get converted into artifacts that developers like us can use. So I was working on a feature yesterday, which I wanted to see how it works, and that's why I have this thing. Anyways, we're not going to use that because I know it is broken.
And just live really dangerously.
Yes, I was going to say that is not going to work. I know that, so I'm not even going to try it. So I'm going to follow the steps and go into my directory here. So I'm into 173. I will follow the export command to set up my path. So now if I do istioctl version, it says my client version here is 173, and I don't have any Istio running pods in the Istio system, obviously, since I haven't installed Istio. All right, moving forward, this is the simplest command and the simplest way to get started with. This is Istio. You use istioctl install, and you set up a profile. In this case, we're going to use the demo profile, and there you go. It's up and running. So first thing it will do over here is it detects whether you have a third-party JART authentication enabled in your Kubernetes cluster or not. In my case, I don't have it enabled, so it falls back to first-party JART and then automatically creates the right configuration. This often bites people if you are not using istioctl-based install, but using your own installation methods. You have to make sure that the configuration maps to this requirement. Right, so it has installed Istio core, Istio D, egress gateways and ingress gateways. And again, this is just a demo installation, a demo profile. So if you don't need an egress gateway in your environment, you don't have to install it. Or if you're using something else for ingress, for example, if you're using Nginx or BigIP, you don't need it, don't install it. All right, so it has completed the installation like it says, but obviously we don't trust istioctl. So what we're gonna do is look at what it installed. So if I go to Istio system and do get pods, there you go. So just around a minute ago, it installed these 3 pods and they're all up and running. So far, Brian, I'm already ahead of where you were, so that's a good sign. The demo is working. So now I'm going to follow this step, which is basically label the default namespace so that the automatic sidecar injection injects the sidecar proxies for any pods that come up in that namespace. This is super crucial and very important. Most of the early customer support issues that I used to handle were I installed Istio, I installed my application in a namespace, but then the sidecars were never injected. And the reason is you haven't labeled your namespace. So you're not going to make that mistake today. We label the namespace. Now, if I do kubectl get namespace dash show labels, there you go. So you see my other Kubernetes system namespaces, they don't have this label. Istio system obviously has that disabled because that will be like an inception kind of a thing. Istio is injecting into its own control plane parts, and that won't be a happy day. And in the default namespace, you have injection enabled. Very cool. So now I'm going to go and install a sample application. The sample application that we use in Istio is Bookinfo. It has a bunch of applications that talk to each other and kind of mimic a fake bookstore, an online bookstore, which has reviews and a bunch of other ratings in it. So let's do that. So it went ahead and created all these service accounts, deployment, and services in the default namespace. So if I now look at what's happening in my default namespace, there you go. I see that the pod is initializing for these applications, and they were just created. So if I hit this again, hopefully things will start converting to running. There are two key things here to make sure. First is, before you run your next steps or the demo, make sure all these pods actually get to the running state. So I'm going to wait until all of them are. So that's good. And the second thing is, if you see, this says 2 out of 2. Even though these pods actually only have one container in the manifest, the sidecar injector automatically added the sidecar proxies in it. And that's why they have 2 containers. So if I go into it and get one of these pods and do a -o YAML, you will see that the first container is the actual Bookinfo details container, which is our application container. And then the second container is this proxy container, which has been injected by the Istio control plane. But if you look at the corresponding deployment for this pod, the deployment only mentions one container. That's why we call it the automatic sidecar injection. Basically, it's watching for all pods to be created, and then it intercepts that request and injects the second container, which is the sidecar proxy. So there you go. We have our pods running. We have those pods with the sidecar injected. Our control plane is actually working. So the next step here is to generate some traffic. So what I'm going to do for that traffic is use a handy script that we often ship with Aspen Mesh and Aspen Mesh container and to the Aspen Mesh customers. So I'm going to just run a Bookinfo traffic generator and apply it. So now I should see that there's a new pod coming up, which is the traffic generator pod. This traffic generator is configured to hit the product page service and generate some traffic. There you go. So it's up and running. I can quickly look at the logs. Of this pod. Traffic generator. There you go. So it's hitting the product page, and you're seeing a web page being rendered in the HTML and JavaScript. Everything is on the screen instead of the browser, so you don't see a pretty GUI. But this basically validates that your traffic is working, your Istio control plane is working, and your data plane has the sidecar proxy injected, and the traffic is working as you would expect. We can go through the next step, which is how to access your application from outside. But I'm not sure if we have the time or if you have some questions that people want to see and to get answers for, we can do that too.
Well,
what do you think, Brian?
Y'all have about 10 minutes, and the only feedback I got is great job on doing the live demo, and y'all need to take a bow for getting this far during a live demo without major hiccups. That was the feedback I've gotten so far. So feel free to hit the next step, and we'll spend the next 9 or 10 minutes, and anything else you want to talk about in that time, by all means.
All right. What do you think, Brian? We should just deploy the gateways?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
All right. So the next step here is basically deploying some Istio resources, Istio gateway and virtual service, so that the traffic from outside, which is from my browser, can hit the Istio Ingress gateway and then get routed to the book info application. So let me do that. So those are created. I'm going to do an Istio-CTL analyze here. Istio-CTL analyze is a set of analysis tools which can run against your configuration and make sure that your configuration is as expected. Often misconfigurations in an Istio cluster lead to all sorts of problems. So this is one of the tools which I always recommend people to run in the CI, or if you're debugging anything with Istio, that's the first thing you do, run an analyze and see what's going on. All right, so with that, I think most of the setup is now ready. What I'm gonna do is get my Ingress IP or load balancer. So this is my ELB from Amazon, and those folks who are watching this and want to take this down because you have access to it, go for it. I'm going to delete that cluster anyways. So that being done, I have this URL. Now, if I go to the URL, basically if I go here, and then hit product page, boom, we have access to our book info application. This book info application has 3 rating service, which the Istio sidecars will automatically load balance. So if I do a refresh, you see different outputs. Basically, one of the rating service does not give any ratings. The other one gives 5 ratings, and the other one it gives 4. Or I think the color is different. Something like that, like Brian. I don't remember what they do.
Yeah, it's black stars, red stars, and then no stars.
There you go.
The book info is. Oh, sorry. Just gonna say, book info is like the core of our documentation. Everything's written around it.
Yeah, you can see that I don't do these demos very often, so I'm not that familiar with your sample application. But this is it. We went through this documentation, and as you can see, in few easy steps, you were able to install Istio, you were able to verify that the control plane is running, you were able to inject the sidecars in your applications, and you're taking benefit of Istio configuration to route traffic. I think this is a good point to stop for the demo.
Sounds good.
Yeah, the only other thing I'll add real quick, it shows a graph here. I won't ask for a demo of it, but Kiali is actually really useful for figuring out how traffic is moving in your network and what issues you're encountering and stuff.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
I love Kiali.
All right, I'm gonna stop sharing. Brian, do you have anything else to add?
I don't think so. Hoping to do this as a series. This is just kind of an overview right here, but yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank you all. I really appreciate y'all coming on. And sorry, my OBS has freaked out all of a sudden. Oh well.
I can still hear you.
You can still hear me? Good. All right, cool. So, thank y'all so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. I hope this gets some people, involved in the Istio project. And yeah, if y'all need anything, or if I hear any questions, I will send them your way.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason, and thanks, Brian. See ya.
Yep.
Thank y'all. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
So with that, we conclude our programming for today. Tomorrow, I don't know yet. Still, I have a few conversations notwithstanding, or I have a few conversations that I haven't finished up. Some things hanging out in the ether. So tomorrow, we're either going to be talking to more open source projects, or maybe we'll actually walk through together and actually see if we can get a couple of these going from a Kubernetes perspective, from a CNCF perspective, and actually go through what it's like to be a contributor on a project for the first time to get things running. So, y'all have a great evening, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye now.